And we are good, Senator.
Thank you, Sam, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 130th Maine State Legislature. My name is Joe Rafferty, and I am a Senator in District 34 down in York County. This morning, we have convened. We are going to have a public hearings on 6 bills, but prior to doing so, we're going to have a brief presentation from the Department of Education momentarily. And prior to either one, I'm going to please ask my committee members if they take a moment to introduce themselves. And I will start with my co-chair, Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning. I'm Michael Brennan. I represent District 36, which is part of Portland.
Thank you. And Senator Woodson.
Dave Woodson, District 33, York County.
Thank you. Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jan Dodge. I represent House District 97, which includes Belfast, Northport, and Waldo.
Thank you. Representative Lyman.
Good morning, Sheila Lyman here at the Capitol, District 74, J, Livermore Falls, and part of Livermore. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Millette.
Good morning. I'm Rebecca Millette. I represent House District 30, which is most of Cape Elizabeth.
Thank you. And Representative Roach.
Good morning. Representative Tim Roach from District 7 Wells.
Thank you. Representative Salisbury.
Good morning. My name is Sue Salisbury, and I represent House District 35, which is part of Westbrook.
Thank you. Representative Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I am live from a beautiful state capitol. The spring, the buds are out. It's pretty exciting. I represent House District 21. That's Alfred, Limerick, Shapley, Newfield, and Parsonsfield.
Thank you. And Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Paul Stearns. I represent House District 119, excuse me, in Piscataquis County.
Folks, thank you. We also have with us this morning, and if you need some help, he's outstanding at it, our clerk, Sam Baker. And I am going to, I'll discuss the public hearing business after the presentation. So this morning we are going to be briefed by the Department of Education in terms of some upcoming news. And if I could, Sam, Commissioner Macon is here with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Rafferty and Chair Brennan and esteemed members of the Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. I'm Pender Macon. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning to provide some brief updates with respect to COVID-19 and its impact on our schools across the state and our response and what to look for next. So I guess I'll just jump right in, and I'll be brief because I understand that you may have some questions that I may or may not be prepared to answer for you, but I promise to get you the answers if I don't have them here. So I'll hit the high point bullets and then I'll respond to whatever questions you may have. As we return, yesterday actually returned from April vacation. Yesterday would represent one of the highest single day reports incoming to the Department of Education of COVID cases that we've had. Really since maybe it's equal to what we had the week after the winter break in January. So that's been concerning because it's been on the rise. Going into vacation, we were seeing larger numbers. When I talk about incoming reports of COVID cases, I want to be clear. These are cases that are reported to us by schools and that we refer to our team of retired school nurses that we enlisted and supported with training through CDC to provide contact tracing that is specific to school settings. They have that unique blend of experience, boots on the ground in schools and the medical background to do a really good job. And we're very proud of that model. And it's been requested at the national level to be shared across the nation because it's such a great service and support. And I don't know how often we have a chance to toot that horn, but we're really proud of the work that these folks have been doing. At any rate, we are on the front end of receiving raw data from schools, and those contact tracing retired school nurses do their business with respect to those reports and then forward the information to the state lab. Until it's verified by a state lab result, any of these incoming reports are not considered to be official count of COVID cases. So I just want you to know that we have a glimpse on a daily basis in terms of what's coming in. Not every one of these ultimately ends up being a confirmed laboratory or confirmed case. And case investigators working through the CDC do the further delve into whether these were considered to be mostly community-based transmission or if there was in-school transmission and whether or not an outbreak is declared. All of that is outside of the Department of Education, if that's helpful info. So yesterday we received 154 incoming cases that are now forwarded on to the state lab. The dashboard that's provided is, of course, a bit of a lagging indicator because the cases come in, we report them forward, they get investigated, and then they make it into that document that's available to the public. So I guess it's important to say that we do have quite a bit in terms of activity with COVID cases in our schools. In more positive news, school-based cases continue to be dramatically lower than the state's overall case rate, which might not have been very surprising earlier in the pandemic, but the fact that even now, we are at 40% the positivity rate of the regular non-school related population of the state. And now that most of the older people are vaccinated, we know that most of the cases are in the younger population, and even in that, diminished overarching preponderance of COVID activity in our state, those who work in schools or attend schools are 40% less likely to be positive with COVID. So we still know that the 6 required safety measures that the Department of Education in partnership with CDC and DHHS and a team of community-based health professionals have implemented really since the start of this school year, those are working. They're working still. And the fact that we are seeing a dramatic rise in COVID cases across our state is absolutely impacting what's happening in the schools. Kids who are at home or in activities or in after school jobs or just mixing it up in the community are basically able to contract this illness elsewhere in the community. And we've double checked with our partners at CDC, and they're still saying there's very little in terms of school-based transmission. So are the kids spreading it kid to kid ever? Probably, yes. But it is not it's not the regular way in which these transmissions are taking place. They are, at this point, thought to be largely community-based transmission that then plays out in our classrooms. What we're working on. So when everyone came back from school prior to the school vacation, Department of Education put out some information about an expanded possible use of the Binax Now COVID tests that are provided at no cost for schools. And many districts decided that they would do a return to school screening using the Binax Now tests. And we'll find out more about how that went. And, because we're not going to have the real-time data at this moment, but we do know that that was one additional safety measure that many districts decided to utilize. Also, starting in May, very early in May, so in the next week or two, DHHS and CDC have been provided with a federal grant of, I believe it's $40 million to support testing in schools, very specifically. The plan that we have worked on together includes PCR testing, which is different from the Binax Now. The PCR tests are the more certain tests. And it's rapid PCR testing. So results are available within 15 minutes or so of these PCR tests. The rapid PCR tests can be administered through a process called pooled testing. And in that situation, a classroom teacher or any adult really can guide students through the process of doing a self-swab, and then all the swabs go into one common container. That container then gets tested. If there's any positivity, then a state contracted provider would come in and do individualized testing to isolate where and who might be positive with COVID. So this is something that could happen on a routine basis. We're hoping that it's voluntary. It's, districts may choose to participate in this opportunity. We know that a lot are very interested. It's kind of a full service opportunity. Schools don't have a lot of or any at all responsibility other than to make it available in the classrooms and to have everybody, who's willing to do a swab, put that in there. That we should have enough funding and enough support to keep that going throughout the spring and see what that teaches us. Is it going to help us to keep people safer? Is it going to provide CDC a better glimpse into trends statewide? And is it working well? We're also going to be able to try it out through many of the summer programs that people are planning, and also into the fall. Probably by around December, we're assuming that the funding may run out around that time. And so districts will have this ample opportunity to try out the pooled testing to see if it's something that they really feel that they would like to continue throughout the school year next year, and decide whether that might be an appropriate investment for some of their federal funding to support ongoing testing in the future. We have in our state the highest rate. We're number one in terms of fully vaccinated percentage of our population that is eligible. So that's great news. Unfortunately, we also are among the handful of states where COVID is on the rise. And you've seen that, I'm sure, in the daily news and in the updates provided by Dr. Shah and CDC, DHHS. Everything that's happening in the community impacts our schools. Many districts have been working very hard to open up further after April break. So as of Monday, there are, and were in some cases, plans to expand, to either 4 days a week or 5 days a week, while also maintaining the 6 required health and safety measures. There is one of those 6 required health and safety measures that stands in the way of full-time, everybody in-person education. And that single remaining piece is the social distancing of 3 to 6 feet. 3 feet is the minimum that is recommended by the US CDC and that is allowed here in Maine for schools to be operating. 3 feet minimum between and among students. Adults in a classroom or in the school setting need to remain a minimum of 6 feet apart from one another. And the combination of the 3 feet for kids, the 6 feet for adults, has made it impossible in some settings for everyone to be in school at the same time. And we recognize that it is urgent and a top priority to get as many students in person for as many days as we possibly can, safely and while implementing the 6 requirements. The team of, the checklist team, as they call them, that's a team of expert doctors and researchers and scientists, pediatricians, epidemiologists. They meet on a very regular basis and they revisit the guidance every time we ask them to. And they also revisit the guidance every time a new study is published. They have a direct line with the US CDC, who are in constant contact with many researchers and scientists who are running studies to see, because this isn't a Maine school issue. This is a national and an international issue. The social distancing is reducing opportunities for in-person education everywhere. So don't worry that this is something that's happening here in Maine and no place else. It's impacting everybody. Therefore, there are many well-funded studies seeking additional mitigation efforts and strategies that could supplant the need for the social distancing. And unfortunately, thus far, nothing has provided evidence of being able to safely supplant the minimum of 3 feet. They've gotten studies that said you can do 3 instead of 6. They have not yet found a study that says double masking, plexiglass dividers, and working ventilation systems can be used in lieu of the 3 feet. They haven't gotten that evidence yet. However, they are eager and watching very carefully for that type of evidence to emerge from any of the studies that are happening internationally. As soon as there is sufficient evidence that something else would be safe or equally safe or even similarly safe as the social distancing, we are confident that the US CDC and of course our main team of experts will immediately seize that opportunity to ensure that students can be in school full time. But until that evidence is available, the safest, the only way we can, I guess, safely hold schools, which is, it's quite a congregate setting. If you think about it, there are not a lot of settings where this many individuals are all day long in a small space together. It makes schools very special. And we know right now that our efforts are working in spite of the fact that we're seeing increased cases. And I will pause there and see what you have for questions.
Myself. I do see some hands up. I saw Representative Sampson, and then Representative Roach, Millette, and Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Commissioner Macon. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question, I have a two-part question. I mean, spring is typically not your flu season. So I would like to know if there are studies being done, if there's information that can be provided pertaining to the fact that Maine is one of the most highly vaccinated, and we're also seeing a significant increase in COVID cases. That's an interesting correlation. I'd like to see some studies that the department has access to regarding the shedding of these vaccines, how they are transmitting to other people. Is there any of that happening? Those are things that need to be explored. There is some evidence that I have been reading that is happening. So if you could provide us with some of that information that you have accessible, and maybe the CDC would have, and connected to that is the PCR test that you were talking about. I would like to know the cycling. What are they cycling these PCR tests at? What is the number? And if you could get that's very critical as to the results that are coming back. So I would be interested in those 2 bits of information.
Right. With respect to that first question, what I do know is that the fact that we are one of the most vaccinated states, and the fact that we're still increasing in our COVID cases because of the median age and the preponderance of cases now being, I believe it's somewhere around 30 years old, that is clear evidence that the vaccinations are working, because it used to be, and nationwide the trend has been, older adults are the ones who are most likely to be positive with COVID. And now that we have most of our older adults vaccinated, they're not the ones getting sick. It has pushed down its younger. Why is it increasing? Right now, our hypothesis, and I know that the CDC here in Maine is collecting as much data as possible to understand it better. The hypothesis is that there is, COVID fatigue, and that people are not being as careful. And, the longer days and the brighter weather have people feeling, more hopeful and engaging more in social activities, and maybe not able to be as mindful of.
And I understand that, I appreciate that, but there is a connectivity here. And I think it's interesting, and we need to get some information on people who are getting vaccinated And I mean, we already know that other vaccines can cause shedding and that folks can then get infected. So I'd like to know what information you all have. Thank you.
And I'll get the other information about PCR cycling number.
Thank you. I had Representative Roach and followed by Representative Millet and Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Chairman Rafferty. Thank you, Commissioner Mencken, sorry. Quick question about the difference between indoor and outdoor when it comes to schools. I watched with interest 2 nights ago, I think, on the news where they Portland was being lauded as this new idea of outdoor learning that they have or something. And I watched, there was no boundary. The kid was right on top of the teacher with, here, and all this stuff with masks on. I'm not saying, is there a difference between indoor and outdoor learning right now in that social distancing? I know because I am deeply involved in graduation here at Wells, I got the graduation, you have to be 3 and 6 feet apart at graduation, an outdoor graduation. But if you don't have to do it in an outdoor classroom, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And then in sports, you don't have to do it, but you have to do it for graduation. So there's a lot of what I consider hypocritical pieces of, and it's not your mandate. I'm not saying it's yours, but what I'm saying is there seems to be a lot. And I know today, I believe the president will be basically saying that mass outdoors aren't necessarily needed anymore. I know that came from Dr. Fauci, I think yesterday or Sunday when I watched, and I believe the president today is going to say that. That's the rumor mill. Will there be changes when that happens too? And how that all works for outdoor learning rather than indoor?
So I can answer, generally speaking, we know that outdoor settings are safer than indoor settings when it comes to COVID. And we know that Maine has been at the forefront in Portland and in other places of outdoor nature-based learning, especially during this time, as a necessity. That said, we have not changed our requirements for school settings. There is not a caveat that says you don't need to be 3 or 6 feet apart outdoors for schools. And so school settings continue to have both social distancing and masking requirements, whether they're indoors or outdoors. And if you saw somebody violating that, we are doing our very best to reach out when we hear about settings that are not able to or willing to implement these things appropriately, and we provide as much support to them as we can.
Just a quick follow-up, if I may.
Yes.
I didn't mean to be like I'm tattling on or it's a violation. That was not my point on that. My point is, if you go to a baseball game or you go to a sporting event, they are right on top of each other. Everybody's on top of it. There can't be social distancing when you play lacrosse, let's say, right? Baseball, I think you can. Representative Stearns can tell me more about that later. But the idea is, could we look at that outdoor? I mean, if we could do it in sports, I'm not sure why we can't do it at a graduation or something, I guess is my point.
Right. And just, to be clear, I know that the rules around athletics, whether community-based or school-based sports, still include 6 feet of distance and masks when people are not engaged in the active on the field play. So it's only for these brief periods of time when they're on the field. All the spectators, all the kids on the benches are expected to be a minimum of 6 feet apart and masks on. So, but we'll certainly be using whatever lessons we can learn from community-based and school-based sports. It's we also know that there's evidence of considerable transmission among teams. And I don't know if that's while they're playing or whether it's on bus rides to and from, but that's been one of the hot spots anecdotally provided to us by the schools who are reporting cases. They'll say, oh, it was the whole, the whatever team, or out of school activity, celebrations and student social events that are causing that. But yes, we of course are going to be looking to what can we learn, what has been safe, and outdoors seems to be safer than indoors.
Representative Millet, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioner. Two things. First, just to follow up with Representative Roach's discussion with you, I would imagine that if the US CDC, and reflecting Dr. Fauci's understanding of the science, were to adjust their recommendations for outside versus inside congregate gathering, then Maine CDC would reevaluate the guidance for schools. Would that be correct?
Yes, of course.
Okay, great. And the testing, I'm curious, will the guide, so as I understand it, testing measures that one point in time, and often it can take between 7 and 10 days for an individual to show or to show positivity. So if you have students that are returning to school this Monday and they traveled the day before, are you aware of schools that will be having periodic testing to possibly assess the level of contagion or the positivity for 10 days out from many students' travel days? Thank you.
Yes, I know that several school districts have decided to make use of the approved expansion of the use of the Binax Now tests, and that they are using them in intervals, just exactly for that reason that you described. And we know that within the next week or two, we're going to have the availability statewide of the rapid PCR pooled testing. That'll also happen on a routine basis.
Thank you. Senator Woodson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Commissioner. You mentioned the Binax test and using it this summer, I believe, or maybe it was the pool testing, I'm not sure. But there's hundreds of recreation programs going on this summer. Would that testing be available to those organizations for those kids?
I will have to look into that specifically. However, in the event that schools are partnering with organizations to provide activities, learning activities, enrichment activities this summer for students, it's likely that they could access it through that partnership, because I do know that the federal government sent this resource specific for schools. And so in most cases, those organizations are operating in tandem, and particularly we're helping to support districts in reaching out to their nearby partners, whether it's the local municipal rec department or a local Boys and Girls Club or other camps and programs, to support the amount of work that schools are intending to get done over the summer. In which case, certain that partnership would give the umbrella so that those could be used.
Okay, I hope that the rules allows a generous flexibility, because I'm guessing there's probably 10 times the number of kids in recreation programs than there are in school this summer. So thank you.
Yes, we'll explore every possible flexibility for sure.
Okay, very good.
I'm not seeing any additional questions at this time, Commissioner. So just want to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us and give us an update. We appreciate it very much, and thankful for the communication. So,
well, thank you so much. Take care.
Good luck moving forward. You take care. Thank you, folks, for that. And I'm sure that information is very helpful to all of us. We're going to move into our hearings, and just want to remind the public that this is being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel, which means that anyone who is a participant via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. Those of you watching on the Zoom waiting to testify cannot be seen nor heard until you are called upon to speak. Please keep in mind that the meeting is being recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after the meeting has concluded. We've had enough experience at this point. Hopefully that we're clear on that, but I know that it's possible that we have some newcomers today that may join us. So just be prepared. Again, if you're being called in to speak, there's going to be a slight hesitation during that transition period. And Sam's been outstanding at his craft, and he'll get you here and help you in doing so, should you have any technical issues coming up. So this morning's hearings, we're going to divide. I think I'm going to open the first half of the hearings, and then my co-chair, Representative Brennan, will take the second half. But in any case, this morning, first hearing is on LD 1426. So I'd like to open that hearing at this time. LD 1426 is an act to provide for the equitable funding of education chosen by Maine families. And that is being sponsored by Representative Greenwood. And I believe as a sponsor, check my schedule, I would assume is first up. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning, Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and my esteemed colleagues on the Educational and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is Representative Greenwood. I represent House District 82, which are the towns of Litchfield, Monmouth, and my hometown of Wales, in both Androscoggin and Kennebec County. I'm here today to present LD 1426, an act to provide for equitable funding of education chosen by Maine families. This year has been especially difficult for parents in the COVID-19 era, which brought this forward after speaking with numerous parents within my school district and being a parent myself. This would allow more educational freedom and choice. This would allow for this LD 1426, if enacted and passed, would allow for public education dollars to be used for tuition in a private school or an educational cooperative attended by the student. It would include payment for the cost of a tutor paid for by the student, and reasonable costs for homeschooling if that was the choice for the student. And with that being said, I would ask if there are any questions.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions of Representative Greenwood at this time, folks? Not seeing any, sir. I just want to thank you for your testimony. Thanks for your time and patience waiting to get on with us. And good luck with this moving forward. Next up, well, let me just confirm this. So we don't have anyone else speaking for the bill at this time. We do have a few folks speaking against, and we'll start with John Kaczynski, and John will be followed up by Ms. Couturier. Welcome.
Hello, good morning. Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, other esteemed members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is John Kaczynski. I'm here on behalf of the Maine Education Association to testify in opposition to 1426. If it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to combine my testimony in opposition to LD 1343, which I believe is your next bill and is similar in nature.
That's fine.
Thank you, sir. Both of these bills, whether it's 1343 or 1426, could be described as voucher bills. They attempt to create a voucher-like system And in either situation, we are very concerned that they threaten the stability of funding for public schools, and if enacted, could divert precious state resources that are intended for public schools. And especially now more than ever, when schools are working so hard to do everything they can to meet the needs of students, the remote learning opportunities they're providing, as well as the in-person. We're just very concerned about the fiscal impact of either of these bills. LD 1426, I would add, goes one step further and provides a voucher to any parent in the state for nearly any educational purpose, including tutoring and private schools and educational cooperatives. As you all know, siphoning away money from public schools is very challenging for our schools and for our local communities. It's the economics of schools are so unique. In my testimony, I have an example, for example, an example of a 100-student school where you might employ 4 teachers who have 25 students in a class. And yet if you lose 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of those students, it really doesn't impact the overall student-teacher ratio, nor does it impact the heat for the building or the other needs of students. And so we just are very concerned about the economics of something like this. We're also very concerned about the skimming of students. There's a lot of research out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They were among the first to adopt a voucher program. And what they saw were the skimming of certain students. And what this really means is the kids who either have advocates at home or have resources are more likely to be able to attend private schools. For example, on LD 1343, the bill you're going to hear later today, 90% of the contribution, the state contribution, could be applied to a voucher. So I took an example like Portland. And in Portland, that means every parent could have access to about $1,900. But when you look at the Waynfleet School, their tuition ranges anywhere from $28,000 to $35,000, a far cry from the $2,000 that a parent in Portland would receive. So what typically happens with these voucher programs in other states is that it subsidizes the families who are already providing a private school education at an expensive rate for the family. And so I also need to flag with LD 1433, in its current form, there's concerns about equity for families, because some families living in minimum receiver districts obviously would receive 90% of almost zero, and that would be very different from what would happen for other families in other communities. We've seen in my testimony, I have a lot of research. Louisiana, Indiana, and Ohio all had voucher programs, and the academic research is clear. It resulted in worse academic outcomes for students. Milwaukee, Cleveland, and District of Columbia, there were similar negative outcomes for students. Even the National Bureau of Economic Research, in a review of the literature, found, quote, the empirical research on small-scale programs does not suggest that awarding a student a voucher is a systemically reliable way to improve educational outcomes. Lastly, both of these bills, 1343 and 1426, unearth new questions about separation of church and state and allowing vouchers to be used for private religious education. As we all know, not all private schools are required. They may have exemptions from certain civil rights laws, such as Title IX and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Vouchers for private religious schools will open serious questions and will have uneven impacts for families should Maine ever allow such provisions to be adopted. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I hope this was helpful, and we hope you'll vote not to pass on LD 1343 and LD 1426. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Kaczynski at this time, folks? Seeing none, sir, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Next up, also speaking against, is Ms. Couturier.
And Senator Dr. Couturier reached out and said that she had to attend another meeting, so she will not be able to present her testimony live this morning.
Thank you. That leads us to Mr. Goldberg.
Okay, and Senator, I don't see Neil Goldberg with us. in the attendees room.
Okay, and the last one on my list is Stephen Bailey.
All right, we have Stephen.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Senator Rafferty and Representative Brennan and members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I am Steve Bailey, Executive Director of the Maine School Management Association, testifying on behalf of the legislative committees of the Maine School Boards Association and the Maine School Superintendents Association in opposition to LD 1426. And I also would like to combine testimony regarding LD 1343. Our associations have consistently opposed expansion of school choice in the state because it increases the cost of education and weakens programs in existing public schools by reducing revenues to support them. We have attached to this testimony an overview of the public school choice options already in statute under 20A subsection 5205, other exceptions to the general residency rules. They include superintendent-approved transfers, known as superintendent agreements, inter-district enrollment agreements, and education service center transfer agreements. Public charter schools, 20A, Chapter 112, also offers choice. To expand choice would further deplete already underfunded school budgets and put a greater burden on property taxpayers. Fixed costs in existing public schools won't go down with enrollment decreases, nor will payroll costs. Class sizes could decrease, but not enough to warrant staff reductions. We also want to note that LD 1426 specifically allows for state funding to pay for enrollment in sectarian schools. Maine law prohibits public funding for religious schools, a law that was upheld in October of 2020 by the First Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals. There also is no evidence that choice improves student achievement. What it does do is take away funding from public schools governed by locally elected school boards, paid for by local taxpayers, and open to all students. We urge the defeat of both bills. Thank you very much, and I'd be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. And are there any questions at this time of Mr. Bailey? I see a hand up from Senator Woodson, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bailey, would you just repeat the superintendent's agreements on what schools they can transfer to?
Superintendent's agreements themselves could be between districts if there's agreement between the two superintendents of the two districts. So there would be a family request to a superintendent of another district that would have to be agreed to by both superintendents.
So it's public to public schools.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Any other questions, folks? Seeing none, sir, thank you very much for your testimony on both LDs. We appreciate you being here. Have a great day. So, Sam, there are no additions to testimony?
Oh, Senator, just as you said that, it looks like Neil Goldberg joined us. Would you like to circle back?
Sure.
That was great timing. He might be having a slow internet issue if it's taking this long to switch over.
Or like me, just lost.
A lot of forks in the road on the virtual highway. Well, there we got the box.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for your patience today. Just coming from a public hearing on internet speeds, and so hopefully they listened wisely, as you just saw. But Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee, my name is Neil Goldberg, and I am providing testimony in opposition of LD 1426 on behalf of MMA's Legislative Policy Committee. When our policy committee met to vote our position on this, they objected to the use of public school funds for sectarian institutions. And that right there was kind of the end of the discussion. But otherwise, the association does find aspects of this bill, primarily section 2, to have merit. The per pupil calculation rates are going to cut both ways. It's going to benefit some of the municipalities and probably hurt others. But generally, our members recognize that rural, smaller communities are having a hard time affording or funding their SAUs, are probably going to benefit from this and would support these types of calculations and then extensions of payment to private school or homeschooling options. So I'll keep it brief today. Thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Mr. Goldberg at this time, folks? Seeing none, sir, thank you very much for being here. You have a great day.
Thank you.
And with that, folks, I think I will close the hearing on LD 1426. Thank you, Representative, for being here. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Mr. Chair.
Next up, then we will, I'd open the hearing on LD 1343, which is an act to create education choices by creating education savings accounts for Maine students. And keep in mind that we do have some carryover testimony we've heard from Mr. Kaczynski and Mr. Bailey as well. But leading off this morning will be Representative Hanley as the sponsor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Senator. Is my audio good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you. Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm Representative Jeff Hanley at District 87, towns of Randolph, Pittston, Alma, and Wiscasset. I'm here today to introduce LD 1343, an act to create education choices by creating education savings accounts. The idea of bringing the school choice funding bill forward all started when I became aware of how the schools in the nation of Sweden are operated. Now, it might sound odd to have a conservative Republican wanting to be Swedish, but let me continue. In that nation, any child may attend any school anywhere in that country, public or private. It is odd that the Swedes got this idea from America, in fact, from Milton Friedman, a world-famous economist. Allow me to quote Mr. Odd Elkin, who was the Secretary of Schools for Sweden from 1991 to 1994, and helped develop that nation's voucher program. Quote, when we designed the Swedish voucher system, we followed the Friedman's advice to keep it universal and simple. The answer was a system where funding follows the student regardless of their parents' income. Under our system, every family has the right to choose a school that's right for their child. And every student brings with them the same amount of funding as the cost of the public school in his or her home district. End quote. The point is the right to choose. That principle is basic to a whole system of personal freedom. Freedom to live where we want, freedom to live how we want, freedom to raise our children as we want, freedom to choose how to educate our children. Except, why is this last point incomplete? We as taxpayers and free men and women have agreed to share the cost of a free and good education for our children. Why should anyone have to pay into the federal, state, local tax systems and then lose the right to decide how that education can take place? In the past 12 months, most of our children have had an extremely difficult school year. I have seen it firsthand with my 8 grandchildren. It has not been fun nor beneficial for them. In that same year, many of our private schools in Maine stayed open 5 days a week with in-person curriculum. Imagine if working mothers and fathers had had a chance to send their children to one of those schools. Again, freedom of choice. Like Sweden, I've tried to keep this legislation simple and fair, totally voluntary. No one has to go into it. It's totally voluntary. No added cost to the state or local governments. Zero, pays for itself. 90% of all the school funding that would normally go to a child in their home district goes into an account in the child's name. 10% stays with their home district to allow for activities the child might want to be involved in their home district. The family can choose any school, public or private, in the state of Maine. Any unspent funds at the time of graduation from the 12th grade may be used for higher education anywhere in the state of Maine. There are 2 changes I would like to make in this legislation. First of all, I want to remove any and all language around homeschooling. This bill was never intended to capture homeschooling at all. And second, that no school that participates in this voucher program would be allowed to charge a greater fee than what is in the voucher program itself for that year. The reason for that naturally was the concerns I heard earlier from testimony with the Maine Teachers Association, is that you would have wealthy schools using this as a subsidy. Well, we don't want to do that. We want each school that receives the voucher money, whether it's a public school or a private school, to operate on the same financial footing. And I think it would be good of all of the members of this committee to educate themselves on the Swedish system. They instituted this program. It's well over 15 years of activity, and the results have been quite remarkable. Sweden has a wonderful, very progressive, and free school system. Free for the parents, free for the students, and it does a wonderful job, and everybody is very satisfied with it. In fact, Sweden now considers this an actual human right, the right to choose education for their children. So I thank you for allowing me to present this bill, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of Representative Hanley at this time, folks? Seeing none, sir. Oh, sorry, Representative Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Hanley. Would you be able to provide us with the study that you are referring to regarding Sweden?
Yes, I can do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions or requests? Seeing none, sir, thank you very much for your time and your testimony, and good luck moving forward. Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Senator, and thank you for the committee for listening to me.
Thank
Have
you,
a good day.
We do not have any more proponents to speak. We've heard from Mr. Kaczynski, Mr. Bailey. We do have one additional testimony, and this would be a person that opposes the LD, and that would be Stephanie Erickson. And welcome.
I don't see Stephanie with us, Senator. Nope, there's no Stephanie with us in the attendee room.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I believe that will end the testimony relative to 1343. Is that correct, Sam?
I don't see anybody else, Senator.
All right, well, I will call the hearing on LD 1343 to a close. And thank you, folks, for that. And open the hearing on LD 1449, which is an act to provide for education funding reform for more equitable state support to communities. And that is being sponsored by Representative Geiger And I believe that Representative Geiger will lead us off in terms of speaking.
We don't have Representative Geiger with us. I did text him a few minutes ago, Senator. Would you like me to call him up too, see if he's available, or if we need to shuffle the bills?
Yeah, why don't you check on his availability? Do you notice if any of, I'll give you 3 other names, perhaps, maybe one of them was recruited to.
Sam, it's her. It's Representative Valley Geiger is female.
Oh, I apologize. I apologize.
So, just so you know.
Thank you.
How about, there was a couple of folks, Nathan Davis or Nancy Cronin.
Everybody who's testifying for this bill is present.
They are.
Oh, there we go. She just joined us. All right. I guess we just have to talk about people and then they appear in the Zoom.
No. Welcome, Representative Geiger. Good morning.
Good morning. Is my bill up?
You are, yes.
Oh, okay, you guys get through very quickly compared to us over an idea committee.
It's not always that way.
I bet. Well, good morning. Good morning, Senate Chair Rafferty and House Chair Brennan and honorable members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is Valley Geiger. I am the House Representative for District 93, Rockland and Owl's Head, and I am the sponsor of this bill, LR 1449, an act to provide for education funding reform for more equitable state support to communities. Prior to being elected to the legislature this past November, I was a Rockland City Councilor for 6 years. Rockland is a service center and notable in Knox County for having a high mill rate, $22.30 per thousand evaluation this year, versus Knox County as a whole, which is $15.07, or Maine, which is $14.59 per thousand. It has a low annual median income of $44,000 versus $56,000 for Maine as a whole. It has a high poverty rate of 17.4% versus 12.5% for the state average. And finally, 70% of its children qualify for reduced or free lunch. It is within that context that I have spent years struggling to understand an education formula that provides less per student to Rockland than other service centers, and much less when compared to other both rural and urban districts. The average cost per student in 2021 spent on education is estimated to be about $14,000 in Maine. Rockland receives $3,000 per student, or 24% of that amount. As a member of the mayor's group, I found my city's concerns were shared by most other service centers. The low level of educational support and the decline to 2% of municipal revenue sharing, as well as the need for residential taxpayers to pay for a broad array of service centers the service center provides for its surrounding region, have left our communities going without and struggling to provide a quality education to our children. This low level of support has costs that ripple out across the region. There's increased sprawl as families and others choose to leave Rockland or not move there in the first place, but instead settle in surrounding communities to avoid the mill rate that Rockland has. A city with crumbling infrastructure. If you've been to Rockland lately, you'll see that our roads and sidewalks are in terrible shape. A school without the funds to provide the services needed, and elderly residents on fixed incomes facing the need to leave their homes due to high levels of property tax needed to pay for education. Education makes up about 60% of the property tax raised in my community. Those of us, and there were many of us, who voted for the state to increase their contribution to public education to 55%, assumed we were voting to have 55% of education costs per school district, not the wildly unequal school spending that exists today. Education is a state mandate. Maine faces an acute workforce shortage and a high number of students who fail to go on to post-secondary education, remaining neither in school nor in the workforce. Our schools need enriched preschool to ensure children are ready to learn. Our students need quality education to prepare them for the world of both post-secondary education and work. Our communities need equitable funding to make that happen. I believe Maine has to move toward a more equitable funding formula that is transparent, fair, and provides a quality education that does not depend on the wealth of a town or depend on the property tax, which can be remarkably regressive. I have in this bill requested a short-term and a long-term solution to this inequitable educational funding system. Short-term, I'm requesting that any additional monies that are going to be provided to school funding, to a school education, be outside the formula and instead distributed on a per pupil basis. Long term, I would ask that an organization like MEPRI look to a wholesale change in the educational formula. And I have included in my bill several different states' approaches to education. And as far as I can tell, Vermont is seen nationally as the most equitable and fair across the country. I know this is not an easy request. I understand that the funding formula has been in place a long time and has many proponents. But just as an example, I included a table of different communities and the wildly differing amounts of funding resources they receive despite high poverty levels or grossly differing annual incomes. For example, we get about the same amount of money per student that Falmouth does. Our annual income is $44,000. Falmouth is $121,000. Our poverty rate is 17.4. Theirs is 6.2. It remains puzzling to me that we can continue year after year to allow that kind of gross disparity among communities. Thank you for hearing me out, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative Geiger. Folks, do we have any questions at this time? I do, from Representative Stearns, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Geiger, I might have missed it, but did you just say that the median family income in Falmouth is $121,000 a year?
Yes.
Thanks.
I did include resources for every statistic I have in that table attached to the table.
Thank you. Representative Brennan, please. Sir, you're muted, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. And thank you, Representative, for being here today. The question I guess I have for you is, you submitted to us a concept draft. And one of the things we've always struggled with school funding is we end up either making kind of incremental changes to the formula to tweak it here or there. The last time, obviously, that we made a major substantive change to the formula was back in 2005-06 when Essential Programs and Services was passed. And then prior to that, in 1995, there were major changes to the formula where we did include income in the school funding formula. And again, that was replaced in 2005. So I'm just wondering, we've also had a major report, and I think other people on the committee would refer to it, the PICUS report that was done in 2012 and 13, and kind of evaluated the school funding formula that we had relative to a number of different national models. So I was just kind of wondering at this point, and given that you come from Rockland and you come from a coastal community, valuation weighs heavily and negatively for your community within the formula. And my guess is that your school population is not increasing noticeably. And those would be two factors that would work against you. But I guess my question is on the concept draft, and you gave us a number of different potential starting points. Is there any one that you think is more important to examine or to look at rather than another?
Well, Representative Brennan, if I were queen of the universe, or at least of Maine's education funding.
Well, you are for the next couple of minutes.
I guess to me, as I looked through the different states, and it's very clear reading the research that nobody has identified the perfect model. I didn't read a single paper that said, oh, this is the one. But it's so clear to me that we as a state are educating our children for the entire state, that that just because you went to school in Camden or Rockland or Rumford, it's not necessarily where you're going to end up. So the whole state has a stake in children receiving a quality education. So from my own perspective, it seems like there ought to be a foundation based on a per pupil amount. We're supposed to spend 55%. So maybe 45% of that is evenly spent across the state on a per pupil basis, and that the remainder then looks at things like income levels, poverty rates in communities to apportion the rest. I certainly do not, I have enormous sympathy for communities. Rockland is lucky in so many ways. When I think of places like Millinocket and others that have lost major employers, and I think Millinocket, I looked at their mill rate is something like $38 per thousand. I certainly don't want to take money from struggling communities, but I think our current formula does two strange things. It encourages gaming so that we have wealthier communities tiffing everything so that all of that property stays outside the valuation formula. And we have many declining rural communities who have a significant decrease in student populations, and the formula allows them not to have to do anything about that. It allows them not to join other school districts to make for a more efficient school, which means that a fair amount of Maine's money is wasted. I had a gentleman who's recently moved to Rockland come to me. He came from Northern Maine with reams of data. He had been on the school board there of a school that was newly built by the state and will be closed in the next few years because there are no students. And his perspective, and I don't live in Northern Maine, was that we do that more often than we should, given the cost of new schools. So I just think it's time for us to take a fresh look, to meet our commitment to educate every student, and then to provide additional resources for those communities that are really suffering.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, folks, of Representative Geiger? Seeing none at this time, Representative, thank you very much for your testimony, and good luck as you move forward with this. You have a great day.
Thank you very much.
We have two folks speaking as proponents. The first one up is going to be Nathan Davis, and Nathan will be followed by Nancy Cronin.
Good morning, everybody. Senator, sorry about that, a loud car just drove by. I don't know if you heard that. Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and members of the committee, thank you for hearing my testimony. I submitted this on behalf of myself and another city councilor, Sarah Austin. We are two city councilors of Rockland, Sarah Austin and Nathan Davis, and we testify in support of LD 1449, an act to provide for education funding reform for more equitable state support to communities, presented by Representative Geiger of Rockland. We'll begin with some statistics concerning Rockland's economic situation in relation to the rest of the state. According to the US Census Bureau, the median household income in Maine is $57,918. In Rockland, it's $44,156, or 24% lower than the state median. 79% of students in our local elementary school qualify for free or reduced lunches. 79%, which is a figure higher than 92% of other schools in the state. And yet, under the proposed biennial budget, RSU 13, of which Rockland is part, will receive only approximately $3,839 per student. We could contrast these figures with those of many other districts, but will choose MSAD 51 as an illustrative example. MSAD 51, encompassing Cumberland and North Yarmouth, will receive approximately $6,103 per student, about 59% more than RSU 13. The median household income in Cumberland is $111,890, and the median household income in North Yarmouth is $79,025, both much, much higher than the median household income in Rockland. MRS Title 20A requires that, quote, school funding based on essential programs and services must be available in all schools on an equitable basis, end quote. We believe that the current funding mechanism, which in some cases results in proportionately smaller subsidies for communities with much lower incomes, clearly fails to meet that standard. In particular, despite Rockland's relatively high coastal property valuations and the recent spike in real estate prices, we are forced to ratchet up property taxes to meet school needs, leaving little in the budget to maintain our roads, much less address the needs of many long-term Rocklanders on fixed incomes, or provide affordable housing for prospective new young residents. Representative Geiger's bill attempts to address this unfairness by establishing a logical link between state education funding and per capita income, as well as giving additional consideration to service centers like Rockland that provide necessary services to the surrounding communities without additional revenue and compensation. It additionally proposes new funding models to further address funding disparities among school districts. We urge the committee to consider this bill not only in light of Rockland's needs specifically, but also in the spirit of basic fairness to all Mainers. All of our students deserve excellent schools, and we encourage the state to reform the education funding formula to address these shortcomings. We strongly support LD 1449 and ask that you do as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions of Mr. Davis at this time, folks? Seeing none, sir. Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Have a good day. So next up is Nancy Cronin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and distinguished members of the Joint Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Nancy Cronin, and I am here today representing the Fayette Central School Committee. We are in support of this concept of adjusting the EPS formula to be more equitable. Fayette is a tiny town, 17 miles west of the capital on the edge. Let me just shut this. I am dual meeting at the time, and it says I am unstable. At least my internet is. There we go. Fayette is a tiny town about 17 miles west of the capital on the western edge of Kennebec County, just before you cross into Livermore Falls. We have one elementary school with 3 classes that combines grades. We tuition out our middle and high school students to neighboring districts. Fayette is considered a minimum receiver. Historically, we receive between 1% and 4% of the subsidy from the state. This is largely because of our varying special education needs. Our property mill is over 17 now, but we are water rich, even though our town has very little public water access. I assure you, the lion's share of year-round residents is not wealthy and have lived in the town for generations. A few years ago, I struggled with the EPS formula, trying to find a way to tweak it so that our town's wealth could be better represented. After much analysis, I was really sickened by the fact that every town had residents who had children that were struggling. And every tweak that I tried to make had winners and losers. As a woman who works as a systems change agent for children with disabilities, that was really tough for me to balance. Where I landed was, regardless of how you define a town's worth, I think we could all agree that every child in Maine needs an equitable education that contains a minimum set of standards. And we have that in the Maine learning standards. I would also argue that every child needs at least a minimal investment from the state as well. In March this year, MEPRI prepared a report about the EPS formula for this committee. Among other things, they explained that whatever changes you make to the formula, there will be some towns who benefit and some towns who won't. However, they did say that adding a floor is one of the few actions that you could take that would not have a negative impact to any town, only benefits, not cost incredibly much, and they recommended that you consider it to balance the requirements of higher teacher pay, of encouraging higher teacher pay. They recommended that you add a floor to the formula. And I agree with that floor, as MEPRI suggests, would encourage school districts to provide a minimal teacher wage. But I also think it is important for you to implement a floor in the EPS formula to make a clear statement that every Maine student is worth an investment. That floor would be important to towns like Fayette as well. Please consider using this vehicle to raise the floor from 0 to whatever you believe the minimal investment in every child's education should be. That's not changing the EPS formula. You already have research on it, and MEPRI has already suggested and given you some options for it. Thank you very much for taking your time to listen to me speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cronin. Any questions of Ms. Cronin at this time, folks? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony and your presence here today. It's very helpful. Have a good day.
You too.
Oh, come up. And let's see, Nancy Cronin. I think we only have one additional speaker that I'm seeing, and this person is speaking neither for nor against, and that will be Mr. Goldberg.
Looks like he dropped off again, Senator.
All right. So no additional testimony, Sam?
Correct, Senator. That's everyone.
Thank you very much. So that said, Representative, thanks again for being here. I'm going to bring the hearing on LD 1449 to a close. You have a great day. Representative Brennan. We do have 3 additional bills. Would you
Okay.
like to assume the gavel at this time?
Thank you, Senator. And I think we hopefully will be able to get through those 3 without having to take a break. But we'll play it by ear and we'll see how it goes. So at this point, we are looking at LD 1258 and LD 1391. And yes, we're looking at both of them. 1253 and 1391, right? So what I'm going to ask, I'm going to open the public hearing on both of those at the same time, and I'm going to ask Representative Millette to present her bill, and then that will be followed by Representative Collins, who will present his bill, and then we'll ask people to speak for, against, and neither for nor against on both bills simultaneously. So I'll open the public hearing on LD 1253, and I would ask Representative Millette if she would present her bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Good morning, Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and esteemed colleagues on the Committee for Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Rebecca Millette, and I represent House District 30, which is most of Cape Elizabeth. I am presenting for your consideration LD 1253, an act to add a faculty member and non-faculty staff member to the Board of Trustees of the University Maine system. The second year of my first Senate term, relations between faculty, staff, and administration trustees at USM were strained, to put it mildly. as the system began a series of cuts to programming and positions. And then last fall, frustration resurged around the retiree healthcare issues. Then retirees picketed the chair of the board's place of business. Dozens attended the board meetings to express their anger at the proposed changes. A lawsuit was filed. Finally, the university reversed its decision, but I am confident all of this could have been avoided if faculty and staff had meaningful representation on the Board of Trustees and a meaningful voice in the discussions that impact the universities. The stressors on higher education, economic, demographic, and societal, are putting pressure on the relationships among boards, faculty, and administration across the country, and the same is true here in Maine. Affordability, persistence, access, and workforce development have raised expectations for our higher education institutions and often require significant change. And change is a team game that requires trust and openness. Henry Ford said, "Coming together is beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success." Today, with all of the opportunities and challenges that our university system faces, it is essential that university, faculty, staff, administrators, and Board of Trustees have multiple opportunities to develop a shared understanding of the path forward for our proud state's higher education institution. Creating a seat for a faculty member and a staff member on the university's Board of Trustees is one such way to open up and improve lines of communication and build mutual understanding of the issues and possible solutions. This proposal is not groundbreaking. Arizona, Florida, Oregon, and West Virginia currently have voting faculty members on their boards. The world didn't end. Maine should follow suit. The chair of the Arizona Faculty's Council sits on the Board of Regents. Florida's Board of Governors and local boards of trustees seat the faculty senate chairs. In Oregon, one member each is drawn from the staff and faculty of the university. One faculty member representing extension services or health sciences, and one member of the university's classified employees serve on West Virginia's Board of Trustees. There are procedures and safeguards in place for all of these state boards against conflict of interest that would well inform similar additions to our board. We have many reasons to celebrate the University of Maine system and all that it does in support of our economy, our communities. And at the center of that success are our students, faculty, staff, administrators, and trustees. All have a critical role to play in our university's future. And now more than ever, all must find that common ground to forge stronger bonds and a shared vision. LD 1253 is about replacing frustration, anger, and disruption with transparency, trust, and fellowship. I hope you will join me in support of LD 1253.
Thank you. We will now, Sam, is Representative Collins here?
Trying to get him on the phone now,
Mr.
Representative.
Chair, does anybody have any questions for me before you go to the next testimony?
Would you prefer that?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any members of the committee that have a question for Representative Millett? Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question, Representative Millett. Has there been pushback to have these two faculty and non-faculty members be on the board? Does that come from the current boards of trustees, or what do you think is the driving force behind that?
I can't speak for those who are in opposition. I believe what we will be hearing from a board member later today.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Millett, your bill pertains only to USM, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how are the other university campuses or systems board of directors made up? Do you know?
I'm very sorry, Senator. This pertains to the University of Maine system, so UMS.
Oh, okay.
I inverted the, yeah, so
Okay.
it pertains to UMS.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, we will now go to Representative Collins for his presentation on LD 1391. Representative, good to see you. Thank you for being here. And I don't know if you were listening, but we're trying to hear both bills at the same time, LD 1253 as well as 1391. So we're asking you to present the bill, and then we'll have people speak neither for nor against, depending on their preference. So if we could hear from you now, that would be great.
Oh, yes. Good morning. Thank you, Representative Brennan, Senator Rafferty, distinguished members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm Benjamin Collings, representing House District 42, part of the city of Portland. And I didn't review Representative Millette of Cape Elizabeth's bill, but I believe it's going towards the same direction. I believe that I might be asking for more faculty to be on the board in this proposal than she may have proposed. And I'm fine with working with the committee and Representative Millette to come up with something that's reasonable. The point being is that I believe we need a greater balance on the Board of Trustees. I believe we need to have a greater balance of faculty, staff participation. I think there needs to be greater diversity in that equation as well. So I hope you can consider that as well. When I talk about having more of a balance of workers on the board, I do want it to reflect some diversity, and I want it to be clear on that because I don't think that's in the bill. But my bill is as simple as that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions and to again work with you and whichever route you want to take with my bill or Representative Millette's. But I do hope that you will listen to testimony and that you will consider, to some extent, having a more, in my opinion, what would be a more inclusive Board of Trustees that greater reflected people in the state of Maine, in the university, and had more knowledge on the board of people that work and understand education and have been working for many years in the education field in the university system. So thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions and work with you moving forward. Thank you.
So thank you, Representative Collings. Are there any questions for members of the committee for Representative Collings? Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Collings. I just wanted to confirm on your bill, you are recommending the removal of terms. It looks like the part that's stricken from the bill is the 5-year terms.
I'm sorry here. I've been bouncing before committees. I don't have all the language in front of me. I would have to look at it real quick and to answer that specifically. I'm sure there are people speaking after me that could probably answer more on the technical parts of this.
Okay.
So I apologize for that, but in the sake of time, rather than me going and looking at the bill, pulling it up, I think someone will answer that very succinctly for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay, and again, assuming no additional questions for Representative Millette. So that being the case, we will now go to public comment, and we will follow the list as it's been presented to us in terms of the order of the bills. So the first person that we have speaking in favor of LD 1253 is David Alvarez. And Sam is, I see that he's with us.
Oops. So I'm sorry. Am I up now? This is David Alvarez.
Welcome, Mr. Alvarez. We can see you.
Okay, great. So I'm David Alvarez, and I'm the chairman of West Virginia University. And I was asked by Dr. Stan Heilman, one of our faculty members of our board, to join in today. And what I will tell you is being on WVU's board for over 8 years, and recently the last 2 years through the pandemic, or the year and a half through the pandemic, I finished as chair in July. But through my whole time, I have been so impressed of what type of leadership we get from the faculty to our board. And what is interesting is, from a board perspective, is getting the internal truth. And there's some challenges that come with that, where there's, different agendas that come along through, we're talking about, we're trying to realign our board, or not our board, our university, as we come out of the pandemic, the new from the pandemic, because we've learned how to deliver education in many different ways. We've learned that we can save a lot of money. And what was so impressive to me as the pandemic began, and when you talk about kind of the folks that are the fox guarding the hen house, in a way, as if some people would think this is, when they helped us make the decision to furlough people. Look, we have service workers, our classified staff. We understand we have to make cuts, and we're here to just be able to tell them and communicate. And it's in these type of boards, it's transparency. We're dealing with state funds. We work very diligently together to keep our funding in place. The faculty and the classified staff are very vital in our situation in a smaller rural state. So I can't tell you what a great addition they are. We've had, in the 8 years that I was there, one student body president that broke confidentiality that we were raising tuition the night before we announced it. So that was the only time that I can ever say that, and don't know for sure it was him, but we all had a good idea, because later on things come out. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter, other than there was a trust issue with him for the remainder of his 3 months on the board. So any questions for me that I could help offer?
Well, thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for sharing your experience. And I would ask if any members of the committee have any questions for Mr. Alvarez. Seeing none. Again, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your comments.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Next, we'll go to Grace Levitt, speaking for 1253.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Senator Rafferty and Representative Brennan, and esteemed members of the Committee on Education, Cultural Affairs. My name is Grace Levitt. I'm a Spanish teacher, National Board Certified, on leave from Greeley High School to serve as president of the Maine Education Association, with our nearly 24,000 members, faculty and staff, pre-K 12 public schools, as well as higher ed, and of course, our retired educators. I'm speaking on behalf of our members in support of both LD 1253 and LD 1391. The MEA knows that the best decisions are made when the voices of the educators who actually work with and support our students are included in the process. This has been especially evident this year during the pandemic in our K-12 districts that included all stakeholders when they were called together to consider and plan for everything that needed to happen for our schools to be as safe as possible while continuing to instruct our students. Every place where the voices of educators in all roles were included, The year has gone relatively well, considering we are in the midst of a global pandemic still. The importance of educator voice in decisions made in the higher ed world is no less important. In fact, perhaps it is even more so. Whereas in our K-12 districts, the members of school boards are also members of the communities where the schools are, and they are certainly much closer to what the districts are dealing with. For the University of Maine system, the trustees on the board may have much less of a direct connection to the campuses and programs and the people who work in our universities. Having representatives from the faculty and the staff serve on the Board of Trustees would greatly enhance the information needed as important decisions are made, and would thus improve the outcome of those decisions, which in turn benefits universities and the students that they serve. I likely do not need to remind you of the poorly informed decision that the University of Maine System Board of Trustees made this past fall regarding the health insurance for retirees. As Representative Millette already stated in her opening remarks on this bill on 1253, certainly if we had had faculty and staff serving on the Board of Trustees, I have no doubt that there would have been a better source of information that would have been shared prior to that decision being taken, and the outcome would surely have been a better one right from the start, rather than incurring the months of stress and worry for so many retirees. There are so many issues where the perspectives of the people that are doing the work are invaluable in being able to best inform decisions and to understand the implications and the impact of actions taken by the Board of Trustees. Passage of this legislation will mean we are doing what is best for our students and will help to strengthen our university system, which is so vital to our state. We encourage you to support making the improvement to the Board of Trustees for the University of Maine system that is called for in these bills. And I would just point out that your committee also has many current educators and former educators, retired educators serving from all different roles of education. And that certainly helps to inform the decisions, the very important decisions that you are all making that affect all students in the state of Maine. Thank you for your time. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Levitt, for being with us today, and thank you for your comments. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will now go to Lisa Newman, who is speaking in support of 1253.
Hello. Hello. Is somebody able to do the camera for me, or do I need to do that? Oh, I've got to start it. There we go. Hi,
There we
everyone.
go. Welcome, Ms. Newman. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Senator Rafferty and Representative Brennan and distinguished members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm going to speak, like Grace did, in support of both LD 1253 and LD 1391. I'm Lisa Newman. I'm Associate Professor of Anthropology and Native American Studies at the University of Maine, and I serve as president of the University of Maine chapter of AFM, the faculty union. Currently, the UMS Board of Trustees has no designated seats for working or retired public sector educators. Since higher education is the mission of UMS, this needs to be remedied, and I think it will be if LD 1253 and 1391 are passed. Having public sector educators on the UMS Board of Trustees is crucial to making it more informed about longitudinal issues impacting the quality of education and conditions on our campuses. Faculty tend to be active, long-term members of our university communities, with some serving decades, much longer than most administrators. Faculty have responsibility for the academic life of UMS and the curriculum on each campus, and they work most closely with students as a whole over many, many years. They are the glue that holds the mission of UMS together, and they participate in institutions such as Faculty Senate and AFM, which have as their primary foci governance and labor, respectively. This is actually not a conflict of interest. You'll probably read some testimony in opposition to these bills that states it is. Under Title 17, 3104, a board member may not have a pecuniary interest in any contract on which they are voting. So this is simply not an issue with these two bills. We all have a vested interest in public sector faculty and educators being seated on the Board of Trustees. Including public sector educators on the BOT makes sense and adds needed perspective and expertise to that body, I think especially in this time of unprecedented change at the system level. Our educator unions and their members work tirelessly for UMS. I think we deserve a seat at the table. UMS is an educational system and it needs educators on its board. Thank you for the work you do and for hearing my testimony today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Newman. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, have a good day. We'll next go to Jim McClymer, who will be speaking in favor.
Good morning. Thank you. It's fun traveling through that wormhole. I am Jim McClymer, a resident of Glenburn, a physics professor at the University of Maine, a colleague of Lisa Newman. I am president of the faculty union, AFM, and I've already submitted some written testimony. I am in support of both bills 1253 and 1391, recognizing that the number of faculty and staff trustees is different in both bills. From my experience working with the University of Maine system, I suggest that the minimal number of faculty and staff trustees be at least the same as at the University of West Virginia, with at least two faculty trustees and one staff trustee. Given the large number of people on the board with limited higher ed experience and 7 universities, I think the number should actually be increased beyond those minimum. I suspect many people will have a simple and negative knee-jerk reaction to the idea of putting faculty and staff on the board. But if you truly understand the purpose of the board, which is not the day-to-day management of the universities, the need for practical living experience becomes obvious. I want to say I deeply appreciate the comments of Board Chair Alvarez, who kicked off this public comment session. We heard it from a board chairman how much they value having faculty and staff on the board. Early in this process, I organized a meeting between UMS faculty and staff with faculty and staff trustees from University of Oregon, University of West Virginia. These trustees spoke of the dedication of all the board members, while also recognizing that many board members, while experts in their own field of law or business, did not understand often the nuances of higher education. They would approach serious issues from an isolated perspective. The faculty and staff trustees also spoke of how welcoming and appreciative the other board members were, as well as the administration of having faculty and staff on the board. The key point is the board membership and leadership welcome them as full members, realizing that without faculty and staff members, their incomplete knowledge could, and often would, lead to negative consequences for the institutions in spite of their good intentions. Inclusion of faculty and staff as trustees simply broadens perspectives and improves understanding. I also saw some testimony from the University of Maine system. I'm very disappointed they're going to be opposing this bill. In that letter, they impugn the integrity of faculty and staff. I think the letter serves as evidence why we need to have faculty and staff trustees to overcome their inherent mistrust of our interest in what we try to do. Having faculty and staff on the board as full members would make for a better university system. All the board would be better informed about how potential actions would be received, better accomplishing the goals, and we would have new ways of accomplishing the goals as opposed to trying to fix them after the train left the station. Also, faculty and staff would better understand board concerns. It would truly bridge a divide with a positive outcome for all of higher education in Maine. We see how successful this has been with our colleagues in the West and Oregon and our colleagues to the South in West Virginia who have been doing this for 2 to 5 decades. Don't let the language of fear dissuade you from doing something that we should have done years ago. Thank you for your time and your hard work on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. McClymer. Thank you for being here. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, have a good day. Thank you. Next up, we have Paul Johnson, who is speaking in favor of 1253.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I'm speaking in favor of these 2 bills. And there was a question, I think, from Representative Salisbury before, and I looked at the bill and I believe the terms are for 5 years for each term. So I hope that helps you. And I hope I'm not being rude answering that question, maybe was not my role. One of the reasons I'm supportive of these two bills is for the following reasons. I teach in the School of Social Work at University of Southern Maine, so I'm familiar with Mr. Brennan, who's taught for us also at the School of Social Work at USM, and he knows our students very, very well at USM. And a number of times over the last several years, I've gone to Board of Trustees meetings up at Fort Kent being one, and then about you, I live in Brunswick. But it's a good 5 to 6 hours to drive up to Fort Kent from Brunswick. And you get an opportunity to speak at the Board of Trustees meeting. Trouble is, you go up there and they have an agenda beforehand, and you only get like 2 or 3 minutes to talk. And then literally it's like the gong show. You get your 3 minutes and the buzzer goes off and you are yanked from the stage. Now, I've been very impressed with you all this morning. I have to say this, listening to the whole conversation. And at the end of every person who's spoken, you said to your committee, does anybody have any questions, comments, suggestions, ideas? Thank you for being so respectful. I really appreciate that. I wish the Board of Trustees would do that. All we're asking, and I think Representative Millett said this very, very well, is a seat at the table. Right now, each university has a representative assigned to the BOT, but they don't even get a place at the table. They can't even speak at these meetings. And as has been said, to give you some experience from my own campus, a number of years ago, our MBA program was disbanded, got rid of. And I strongly oppose that because the students who take our MBA are very different than the students who take the MBA in Orono. Now you only have one MBA in the state of Maine. It's a very, very different MBA and does not serve the students of Southern Maine. Recently, we learned that there are attempts now just to have one engineering program in the state of Maine. And this has really been set in motion by the Alphonse Foundation. Now, I appreciate everything the Alphonse Foundation does in the state of Maine. They're very, very important family, important people. But they're now saying to the University of Maine system, if you want our money, you have to teach, or there's only certain courses, classes, programs that can exist. That's not right. In order to get the money for the MBA, our MBA at USM was eradicated. With the engineering program, they're now saying one engineering program. That's not right. And you should be very concerned when we learned that the president of Orono is being paid by the Alphonse Foundation over $100,000 a year. There's something very wrong. All I'm asking is that faculty have an opportunity to speak at the table, that our voices are heard, we express our opinion, we advocate for our students, and we advocate for the constituents of Maine. And that's all I request. Thank you very much for your time. I've enjoyed listening to you all this morning. It's been very, very informative, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's good to see you. And thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. Are there any questions from members of the committee of Mr. Johnson? Seeing none. Well, I hope to see you soon, and take care.
Thank you, Michael. You too.
All right. Next, we have Stan Hellman from the University of Virginia. Did Mr. Alvarez said, oh, he is here. Okay.
Just had to unmute and video.
Thank you, Mr. Hillman. Good to see you. And thanks for being with us. And you have the floor.
Thank you. Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, and other members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. As Representative Brennan said, my name is Stan Heilman. I'm a professor in the Department of Physiology and Pharmacology at West Virginia University at the Health Sciences here. So I'm here to testify in support of LD 1253 and LD 1391, both of which would add faculty or staff to the Board of Trustees of the University of Maine system. Now, I currently serve as one of 2 faculty representatives on the West Virginia University Board of Governors, and I'm currently serving in my 5th year in that capacity. In addition to 2 faculty representatives, our board has 1 staff representative, and it also has 1 student representative who also serves as the president of the Student Government Association. Importantly, we are elected by our peers, and we serve as a full member on the board with all the rights that involves. Now, having representation from such a wide array of stakeholders is something of which our university and its president, E. Gordon Gee, is very proud. And that's because, simply put, he and the rest of the board, as Dave said earlier, tremendously value having those voices on the board. Our board is a collection of some really amazing individuals who are at the peak of their respective professions. That includes business leaders, lawyers, and even a rocket scientist from NASA. They never fail to put every effort into doing what is best for our university. However, they do not do the day-to-day work of the university. And as such, it is very difficult for them to understand the various facets of a university and really how it truly works. While the business aspect of a university cannot and should not be ignored, it is so much more than that. And that is the job of the faculty, staff, and student representatives on the board. To provide a perspective that they would not otherwise have, and to provide knowledge that would otherwise be unknown to them. We have an equal voice in matters of finance and tuition and the academic direction of the university. It is important to mention that while we provide insight into our view of the university, we also gain a much more encompassing view of the university and how it operates and the information on which decisions are made, which allows us to more fully represent to other faculty how a certain decision got made and the reasoning behind it. Now, our perspectives allow for increased information and additional experienced viewpoints, which help shape discussions and make for better decisions that benefit the university as a whole. I can say without hesitation or fear of contradiction that our board tremendously values our input, as Dave Alvarez said earlier. So in summary, my experience serving as a faculty representative on the W Board of Governors has brought forth the opinion that the symbiotic relationship enjoyed by the various representatives is only enhanced and strengthened by having elected academic representation and is an important component of a well-governed university. So with that, I thank you for your time today and your appreciation and appreciate your consideration of these bills. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about a faculty's perspective on serving on a board of governors.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to be here. We appreciate your comments. And I would ask, is there anybody on the committee that has questions of Mr. Hillman? Thank you. Mr. Hillman, I just would have one quick question that other people have seemed to address. The most obvious question that comes up is one of, quote, conflict of interest. Have you seen that to be problematic with your role serving on the board?
I have not. We have, like I said, we have several people on the board that are businessmen, lawyers, and trust me, these are people that are well connected within the state of West Virginia. They're governor appointees, so that should tell you something. And when something comes up where they have an interest in it, whether it be business or a law interest in it, they simply recuse themselves from any discussion or voting on that particular item. Now, we as faculty still make our input and voting known for tuition increases and things like that, which we don't think represent necessarily a conflict of interest. But in other situations where they do have conflicts, they simply recuse themselves.
Great.
And I would add that we have a university lawyer, our general counsel, that also weighs in to those situations and makes those decisions as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you. We'll now move to opponents of the bill. We have one opponent to testify, and that's Trish Riley from the University of Maine system.
Good morning, Senator Brennan.
Welcome.
How are you?
Thank you for being with us today. And you have the floor.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Representative Brennan and Senator Rafferty and members of the committee. I am Trish Riley, and I serve on the University of Maine System Board of Trustees. I have taught graduate classes at the University of Southern Maine's Muskie School of Public Service. Through my colleagues at the Muskie School as an alumna of University of Maine, and through my service on the board, I know the value of the faculty, and I can assure you that at issue here is not our commitment to the voice of faculty. It is strong, it is robust, it's unwavering. I believe a university is its faculty, but nevertheless, I'm here today on behalf of the full board to speak in opposition to LDs 1253 and 1391, because we think they create troubling conflicts of interest and circumvent longstanding traditions of shared governance and labor relations. Trustees are volunteers who devote hundreds of hours of service to our public university. All have been unanimously confirmed and possess a depth and breadth of expertise. Longstanding board policy guards against trustees having any real or perceived conflicts of interest in which we, our families, or employers benefit financially or otherwise from board action. This is consistent with general state conflict of interest law for trustees of state offices or public institutions, and also similar to that governing K through 12 schools. The Board of Trustee policy explicitly bans trustees from being employed by the University of Maine system during their service or for 1 year following its conclusion. The bright line between the governing board and employees in both board policy and state law is not only necessary to uphold taxpayers' trust, but also because the state vests the authority and responsibility in the Board of Trustees to administer and to negotiate and administer collective bargaining. The role of unions, of course, is to bargain over terms and conditions of employment. Placing their members as voting trustees would significantly undermine the UMS Labor Relations Act established in Title 26. We're aware of no other large public employer in Maine for which active employees are allowed, let alone statutorily entitled, to serve on the board, neither the Maine Community College System, Maine Maritime. Put simply, union representatives should not have seats on both sides of the bargaining table. And I'd point out we heard the testimony about West Virginia and Oregon. We've done some preliminary reviews. We need to do more. Our preliminary findings, West Virginia is not a unionized faculty. They do not collectively bargain, is my understanding. In Oregon, similarly, the board does not have authority over the collective bargaining agreement. So I think, while I appreciate the comparisons, I'm not sure it's an apples to apples one for your consideration. These bills understandably seek to enhance the expertise of the board to assure faculty perspective, notably from union members, to inform decision-making. We've thought long and hard about this and think that the faculty and staff already do inform our actions through the shared governance process required by the system's accreditation standards. And by longstanding tradition in higher education, faculty determine the curriculum, are directly engaged in academic policy development, peer review, academic selection processes, including presidential searches, as well as budget and strategic planning. As has been noted, a faculty member elected by each faculty senate now serves as a representative to the board, ensuring faculty voice in system governance. This may be an area where we can have more robust engagement given the comments we heard today. We understand that some of the progress that the university is making may make some uncomfortable. I listened carefully to Professor Johnson's comments. Advances like unified accreditation are innovative, but they are not new, nor are they pursued without careful consideration, including input from faculty, staff, and students. Indeed, the co-leads of the combined engineering effort include faculty, and that I think is important. In fact, the idea of a unified University of Maine system accreditation was first recommended by a legislative task force in the 1980s. And the intention for our universities to cooperate, coordinate, share resources in times of very limited resources and academic programs was the very purpose for which the legislature created the system in 1968. Importantly, over the next year, 100 faculty and others will be working to develop a comprehensive self-study of the system, giving faculty a leading role in the critical work of implementing unified accreditation. I assure you, the board takes no action without the voice of the faculty first and foremost. That said, if this committee has any concerns about the decisions of the Board of Trustees or the direction of the system, we very much want to know, and we are highly accessible to you. In fact, the statute spells out a requirement for the board to speak to this committee each year. You have been hearing directly from the chancellor. I would like to offer that the board would be happy to meet with you and reinstitute what I guess was a long time provision. So let me just abbreviate my testimony there. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but first I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to testify and for your longstanding support for Maine's public higher education institutions.
Thank you, Ms. Riley, and thank you for being with us today. Are there questions of Ms. Riley from members of the committee? I have one very quickly. Could you expand a little bit more when you talk about shared governance between faculty and administration? Could you elaborate on that just a little bit more?
The policies and procedures, I'm still a new board member, but I'm learning that the policies and procedures within the institution and the sort of history of shared governance is embedded in higher education, so that any tenure decisions, decisions about curriculum, decisions about the kinds of academic initiatives of the university are done with faculty. There are robust committee structures in place that very much inform the work of the board. All that work goes on, comes to a board committee, and then comes to the full board.
Okay. Thank you. And we hope you're enjoying your tenure on the board.
I am. It's quite a lot of work, and I'm enjoying it, and appreciate the ability to talk with you today.
Thank you. Representative Salisbury had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry for the late ask. Ms. Riley, I just have a question about other university board of trustees that do have representation. How do you think that balances out? We've heard some good testimony about that and how valuable that is. And I know you're saying that there's committees within the university system that provide data and information to the board of trustees. But I'm wondering, how do other university systems balance that by having that representation?
I think what we know about some of the examples that have been given here today, at issue is not whether the faculty voice, at issue is the conflict of interest around collective bargaining. It's our understanding that the University of West Virginia is not a unionized faculty. They don't collectively bargain. In Oregon, that is totally given over to the administration, and the board doesn't vote on collective bargaining. I think for us in our board, it's each faculty senate elects a representative to the board of trustees who participate in our meeting, made more challenging, as you well know, through Zoom. I think that may be an area where we need to think more carefully and talk about making that a more robust input. But I think the issue here is the conflict of interest and the need to be squeaky clean in our ability to keep the collective bargaining, the integrity of the collective bargaining system.
I think that Oregon does have a union, but you're saying that West Virginia does not, so that might be how they do that. Okay.
And in Oregon, from our early research, and we just read the testimony last night, so we need to do more, but our early research, the authority around the contract is completely delegated to the president of that campus. And the board does not vote on the collective bargaining agreements as our board does. So our board is actively engaged. Our Human Resources and Labor Relations Committee works with the chancellor and the staff over the collective bargaining discussions. That doesn't happen as we understand it in Oregon. So it's a different model.
Okay, thank you. And just one more follow-up. I think that there's also well, I hope that there's a lot of also other robust conversations and work that happens on the Board of Trustees outside of the union contract and things like that. So
it absolutely does. And I think those are in place with the shared governance, with the board, the faculty members to the board. You know, when we can have meetings again, there was an awful lot of informal discussion between board members and faculty during those meetings. That, as you well know, Zoom makes a little more challenging.
thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I see our committee clerk, Sam Baker, has his hand raised, which is very unusual. So I will ask him.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. I just got pinged by the HHS clerk, though, that Senator Woodsum, LD 1470 is up, and it looks like you're signed up to testify over there. So if you would like to join that meeting, LD 1470 has started in HHS. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Nope, thank you. We appreciate your help in moving us to the various committees. So thank you. I had Senator Daughtry with a question.
Good afternoon, Trish. Miss Riley, good to see you. This question I think is not so much for you, but I think for Ms. Rissler for the work session. I'm wondering if we could get sort of the statutes of the governing body for Oregon with the collective bargaining agreement, since they do, unlike West Virginia, they do have that collective union agreement. So I'd be curious to see what the difference in language is. And obviously any other states that sort of have similar situations that they've gone through, just anything to sort of guide our conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Senator Rafferty.
Thank you very much, Representative Brennan. And thank you, Ms. Riley, for being here today. So I understand the collecting bargaining piece pretty well, I think. I was did that for 30 plus years in my own school district, but there are so many other issues relative to the education system. And you know, you mentioned accreditation and how teachers are involved in that. And that is, if you communicated with your staff, I think that most would say that's kind of a real bear to take on. That's a difficult process, very time consuming, and it's probably something that might even be outside of the realm of a typical trustee. They don't have those interactions or the understanding of the everyday workings in terms of accreditation. So it's, but I refer to some earlier testimony that one of the gentlemen that spoke earlier said that in situations where there is an assumed or potential conflict of interest, most people will just recuse themselves. So I think that's an option for you, and I think that to potentially overlook an extended line of communication with your faculty is, I know that's something that me looking at it, it doesn't sit well overall. But
yeah, I very much appreciate that, but I think I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to Senator Daughtry's question how this actually works when people recuse themselves, if in fact there are comparable schools to ours where the collective bargaining agreement is a board responsibility. And I think it'd be challenging to think, how do you pick one faculty member from 7 campuses or several? And if you go to 7 faculty member, that's a very large and arguably unworkable board. But I appreciate the concern, and we definitely, if there's ways to better communicate with our faculty, that's first and foremost our priority. I think we need to first revisit the faculty members who are members elected by their senates to represent them at the board meetings. And I heard the comments about concern about that process, and I think we need to revisit that. And that is an important forum to hear that voice on a regular basis at our board meetings.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Ms. Riley, for being here. And I see no additional questions from members of the committee. So we look forward to seeing you as we move forward.
Thanks, sir. You too.
That is Ms. Riley was the last person to testify on 1253, and we're now going to move to the list of 1391, assuming that people can still testify on both bills simultaneously if they'd like. So the first person we have to testify in favor of 1391 is Blake Whitaker.
And Representative, we do not have Blake Whitaker with us currently.
Oh, okay. Next, we had Ms. Levitt from MEA, but I'm assuming that she's already submitted her testimony.
I believe that Grace Levitt and Lisa Newman stated earlier that they were testifying on behalf
Correct.
of both bills.
Right. All right. So we will now move down to Lydia Savage, who is speaking for LD 1391.
And Representative, there's no Lydia Savage with us either.
No Lydia Savage. Okay. Next, then we have Susan Feiner.
Yes. Yep.
Is speaking for 1391.
Here I am. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Ms. Feiner. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And
thank
thank
you
you for
very
being
much.
here today. And you now have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Brennan, Senator Rafferty, and the distinguished members of the Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Susan Feiner. I was a professor of economics and women and gender studies at the University of Southern Maine for 23 years. I was also the president of the faculty union at USM during what we call the Troubles, when 26 tenured faculty were laid off. Before I go into what I prepared, I'd like to give you two facts. First of all, Trustee Riley talked about the shared governance and how that's part of the policies and procedures. I'd like to remind you that the University of Southern Maine and the University of Maine system are both under censure from the American Association of University Professors for failing to provide adequate shared governance. That's fact number one. Fact number two, in recent memory, like the last 15 years, the faculty who are from the faculty senate who go to the board of trustees, they are not allowed to speak in meetings. So if you're not allowed to speak in a meeting, I don't think it's fair to call that a voice at the table. So I'd now like to address the comments I prepared. Some of you know that I'm an economist. I'm a recovering economist. I find myself drawn to numbers at the most ridiculous times. Your clerk has, I believe, forwarded to you some documents from me. It's my written testimony. It includes 3 tables. The first table is showing you the functional spending of the University of Maine system by the various activities: instruction, research, public service. And there's a yellow highlighted row. And you'll see that in 2002, instruction, the core academic mission, received 27.2% is all of the total spending in the University of Maine system. If you run that out to the end, it had fallen to 26.8%. And then if you go to the next page, or rather my next document, where I carry this series up to 2020, you see that by 2020, the share of expenses devoted to classroom instruction at the University of Maine system has fallen to 25%. So only 1 of every $4 is supporting the core academic mission. I hardly see how a board of trustees who has slashed spending on instruction from 27.2% to 25% can be said to be in favor of a robust educational system. I now direct you to the paragraph immediately under that. This is from the AAUP report. Basically, the AAUP, which is of course a national source of expertise on these issues, says that the 26% that they were at back in 2014 is a low number for spending on instruction in a public university. Well, now it's fallen even lower. And the same thing when you combine instruction and research. In 2014, you got to 37.5%. The comparable number today is only 36%. So again, you see budgetary support for the core academic mission has shrunk by 1.5%. And I think that's very unfortunate, and it shows a extreme move away from supporting the core academic mission. Now, you might wonder, because if you look at these numbers, the shares stay pretty constant. On the second document, the one called operating expenses, I'd direct your attention to the line called institutional support. You see how that's at 9%? Institutional support is where the administration lives. And administration spending has gone up to 9% of total spending, while spending on the core academic function has fallen. That's terrible from the point of view of educators. Now, your third piece of chart is called condensed statement of net position. And here we can just very quickly go to the row, that's the third from the bottom. And I apologize if the print is very small. But anyhow, what that row shows is that, I can't even read it without my glasses. It shows that in 2017, the university system had $81 million in unrestricted net assets. And by 2020, that had risen to $103 million. That's $22 million since 2017 that has been pulled out of operating budgets and put into the university savings account, because that's what that unrestricted net assets line is. That's retained earnings if you were looking at a corporate statement. So I ask you, how is it supporting the core academic mission to reduce the amount you're spending on the instruction and the research, increasing the amount you're spending on administrators, while stripping funding out of the revenue stream in order to build up your retained earnings? That's the core of what I wanted to tell you. I think that the University of Maine system definitely needs to have its audited financial statements looked at by a forensic accountant, because I think there's a lot of jiggery-pokery in that. And my last comment is they moved the auditing firm away from a Maine firm. They're now paying a Massachusetts auditor. I think that the state entities are supposed to be supporting state and local businesses. I find that offensive. And finally, the last year that I was able to work on this with the director of finances at USM, I discovered $300,000 in spending at USM alone on cell phones. Nobody had an answer. $300,000 on cell phones. If that's at USM, I would bet system spending is at least $600,000. So these people, the board is not looking out for the academic mission. They may think they are, but they are not. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Feiner. And at this point, are there any questions for Ms. Feiner from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being with us today, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you for having me.
We have now exhausted our proponents and opponents of 1391. And I'll ask Sam, before I close the public hearing on both bills, has anybody else signed up?
I'm not seeing anybody, Representative. That should be everyone.
Okay, so we've included everybody. Okay. So and just before we close the public hearing, I would ask members of the committee, are there questions, information, follow-up that we would ask of Ms. Risler in preparation for the work session? Okay, seeing none, then I will close the public hearing on LD 1253 and on 1391. And obviously work sessions will be scheduled at some time in the near future. Thank you. And finally, we will move to LD 1412. And I'm glad that Senator Woodson has returned. And are you still prepared to present the bill for Senator Pouliot, Senator Woodson?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you.
So we'll officially open the public hearing on LD 1412, and I'll recognize Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Rafferty, Chairman Rafferty. Dave Woodson, District 33, presenting a bill for Matthew Pouliot. Let me see if I can find. Here today to present 1412, an act to the Department of Education to provide information to students, allowing them to make informed choices regarding their education and professional future. This bill requires the Department of Education to provide information to students that allows them to make informed decisions about their education and professional future. This would include the following information: the most in-demand jobs for Maine or the state, and the average starting salary and education requirements for those jobs. The average tuition for a four-year largest public universities and vocational and technical schools in the state. The average monthly student loan payment for obtaining a four-year degree at a public university and vocational and technical schools, and the average starting salary for individuals with four-year degrees and for those who graduate from vocational and technical schools. This bill would help students and their parents be aware of all the options available to a student, from four-year college to vocational training programs and apprenticeships, to other routes to well-paying jobs. It is important for students to have the real facts about what is available when it comes to their future and what the most in-demand jobs are in the state. Having this information available may open up opportunities to students that they did not know existed when it comes to career paths. Also, this information would get them into a career quicker, as this information will let them know what is in most demand, the most demand fields. It could also help when it comes to student debt, as well as it would let students know what their other options are to getting training and what they need and the cost of it. The ultimate goal of this bill is to put all this information in an easy to use package so that students and parents can access it and they can make the most informed decisions. Thank you for your consideration. Submitted by Matthew Pouliot, Senator from Augusta.
Well, Senator, thank you very much for your presentation. And in the meantime, Senator Pouliot did appear.
Oh, he did. I'm
sorry. But he gave you the thumbs up, so you did a good job. But
okay.
Senator Pouliot, if you'd like to expand on Senator Woodson's comment, feel free at this point.
Thank you very much. I missed it by just seconds. Dave, Senator Woodson, you did a great job. Thank you. So I think pretty much the summary given there by Senator Woodson, covers it. Happy to answer, though, any questions that the committee might have. I'm just really, at the end of the day, trying to increase transparency and help students and parents and guardians with making better decisions for their future. I'm sure there'll be some kind of fiscal note associated with this, I would imagine, and be happy. I have not yet on this particular bill worked with the department because I wanted to see if there was going to be an appetite from the committee. But if there is, then I'm happy to dig deeper to figure out ways we could make this feasible.
Okay. Thank you, both Senator Woodson and Senator Pouliot. And I would ask if there are questions from members of the committee. And I see that Representative Millett does have a question, I'm assuming of Senator Pouliot.
I could ask Senator Woodson, but that would be kind of silly. So Senator Pouliot, it's so good to see you. Glad you could show up. So I'm looking at some testimony we've received, and it appears that there is information available. Have you done a kind of an inventory of what is already out there?
No, I have not. I do know that some of this information is out there. What I'm trying to do is, I do know that there's not one central kind of clearinghouse place that parents, educators, and students can go to access this. I know that this information is available, and previous legislation that you and I have supported with post-secondary institutions, reporting things like graduation, completion of degrees, and what people, I think might have been Senator Alfon or Representative Berry at the time, had a bill a few sessions ago, to try to help students understand what incomes they could expect to receive from different degrees and so forth. I'm just looking to try to pull this all together in one place so that it's easier to access. And right now I haven't been able to find a place, but if others know of something, I'm all ears.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Senator Pouliot? Representative Dodge and Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for being here to answer our questions and for your work on this bill. I am interested in if you or perhaps Ms. Risler for the work session could give us some idea about the information collection that already exists with local guidance counselors. These folks were the go-to people and are the go-to people for so many of our students. And I wonder if there is some information about either from some of them to shed some light on how easily accessible this information is, not only for them, but for the distribution and sharing with students and parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dodge. Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Senator Pouliot. I know that early on before the session, you and I had a brief discussion regarding this information. And I wanted to point out that LD 572 has passed through the committee level, and that was a bill that required each school, middle school and high school, on their website, whenever they're talking about any career or further education opportunities, to post the data from the Maine Department of Labor that I think crosses over with many of the pieces that you have in here. So I'm not sure. I certainly like the bill. I signed on to it. And I'm not sure what direction it will take, but that may be the vehicle that becomes a go-to repository for this type of information. The two bills may complement each other. Wouldn't you agree?
Great. That's the reason why I signed on to your bill too, Representative. Yeah, and you know me, I'm not like wed to this way or the highway type thinking, it's just, we live in a society where it seems like we're all super busy, and if information is power really for everyone, and to the extent that they're not relying on some kind of Google search or whatever to get this, that they could go to a state validated website and have a button to click to see stuff. And I recognize, even from back in my days of fighting for financial literacy equity education and trying to see ways that students could have access to that, it's not as easy as just putting a button on. I'm not naive to believe that. There's a lot of work that would go into assimilating this and keeping it updated and so forth. But if we can get there, that there is a central place that people can go to, and when a parent's talking to their kid, they could say, hey, let's check this out and see what the options might be. I think it could be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, Senator, thank you for being with us, and we hope to see you at work session.
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me hop in. Have a great day.
Okay. So next up, we had, speaking in favor of the bill, is Ben Lucas. And I see that we do have Mr. Lucas. Thank you for being with us today, and you have the floor.
Yes, good morning. Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, members of the Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Ben Lucas. I live in Portland, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Maine Jobs Council. I am here today to testify in support of LD 1412. As we all know, Maine has a serious workforce issue. A recent report by News Center Maine noted that our retiring workers will leave 158,000 open jobs in the next 5 years. Maine needs to act urgently to develop a long-term plan that helps our workforce and keeps jobs in Maine. We believe LD 1412 could be one step in addressing the pending workforce crisis. As stated, this bill proposes to create a process for the Department of Education to provide information to students that allows them to make informed decisions about their education and professional future. We believe this change could help improve the workforce crisis in Maine. Not all students are destined for four-year colleges, yet that has been the primary focus of most K-12 education. Providing students with this information that has been discussed could help employers fill a record number of open jobs in Maine. Foundational jobs exist in industries such as manufacturing, construction, farming, fishing, forestry, transportation, and energy. They add value, create wealth, and bring revenue into our state. They have competitive starting wages, and many do not require four-year degrees. We believe students should be made aware of these opportunities through the career landscape information collection outlined in LD 1412. Maine needs an overall strategic plan for the attraction of foundational jobs that can inform students about future employment opportunities and needed skills. If this legislation passes, it'll make more students aware of the opportunities that exist to get a job and start making a good wage. This can be a pipeline for helping keep students in Maine, move our economy forward, and we believe it falls in line with Governor Mills's 10-year economic plan and the goal to attract 75,000 people to Maine's talent pool. In closing, we want to thank Senator Pouliot for bringing this legislation forward. The Maine Jobs Council fully supports legislation that helps address workforce development. The best way to grow our state is with a robust economy that is full of quality jobs that provide career choices, career growth, and increasing wages. Keeping our students in Maine is a great way to grow our talent pool and develop more jobs. We urge this committee to pass LD 1412. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to testify. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, and I'll be available for the work session.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Are there any questions for members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for being with us.
Okay, thank you.
We will now go to Joe Horvath, who is speaking in favor of 1412.
Oh, there we are. All right.
Welcome. Thank you for being with us today. And you do have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chairman Brennan, Chairman Rafferty, and members of the committee. My name is Joe Horvath, and I'm a visiting fellow with the Opportunity Solutions Project. OSP is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that advocates for policies that help people find work and maintain self-sufficiency. You have my written remarks already, so out of the respect for the committee's time, I'll be brief. It's going to come as no surprise to members of this committee that student debt is a growing problem, not only in the United States, but Maine specifically. Nationwide, we hold $1.7 trillion of student debt, and the average borrower in Maine accrues approximately $30,000. Right now, Capitol Hill is considering its options, but as we all know, states can solve problems too. This bill is exactly that, the state being a proactive problem solver. Simply put, this is good legislation. It does two important things. It helps provide young people and their families with the information they need to make a school and career plan. And it also helps align the higher education system with the job market. So here's how the bill works. The Department of Ed, in cooperation with other agencies as necessary, will develop two tools, an online database and an annual publication. They will contain the same data, which provides young people with the information on the cost of school, student debt and graduation rates, income potential, and Maine's job market. And it's important to remember who needs this information. I want you to imagine two different high school students. The first comes from a family where the assumption is you go to college because that's how you make it in America. She doesn't know what she wants to do with the rest of her life, doesn't have a good idea of what college costs, and doesn't have a plan. But she's going to sign up for potentially $100,000 of student loans on the promise of future success and fulfillment. Now, think about a young person who comes from a family where college is too expensive, out of the question. He has strong interests in school, pretty good idea what he wants to study, and he has an idea of what he wants to pursue as a career. But his family of limited means assumes school is unaffordable, so the issue gets dropped. This bill is for both of those young people. It gives them the data on how much schools cost, what level of debt they might accrue, and what job opportunities are out there. It helps them understand the costs, the benefits, and ultimately make a life plan. We can't afford to have our young people flying blind, and student data shows they certainly can't afford it, student debt data. This policy is also getting traction across the country. In the past 2 years, legislation like LD 1412 has recently passed in 5 states: Kansas, Louisiana, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Arizona. This bill gives the legislature a chance to prevent unnecessary student debt, help young people find and maintain a career, and provide employers with a resource to increase their odds of filling good-paying open jobs. I urge this committee to help Maine to be the next state to keep young people out of debt and in a job. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions. And if I may, actually, would it be all right if I just started? Representative Dodge and Representative Stearns had questions for Senator Pouliot. Could I just speak to those really quick?
Sure.
Okay. Representative Dodge, I think properly applied, this bill doesn't produce work for guidance counselors, but just gives them a new tool to make them even better at the job they currently do. And Representative Stearns, I've seen this policy move in other states like Kansas, where they had some of the infrastructure built already. And I got to tell you, the in-demand jobs list that's produced in Maine is a really good tool. I was just fiddling with it this morning. So it's exactly the kind of thing you can bake right in. So you're right. I think it's complementary with the other legislation you're working on.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Horvath? Seeing none, thank you. And we appreciate your being here today.
Thank you, sir.
And I'd ask our clerk, are there any other persons who have signed up?
No, Representative, that's everyone.
Okay. So I'd ask members of the committee if they have any questions or comments, information that they direct to Ms. Risler in preparation for the work session. Representative Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it would be great just to get a sense of what's already out there.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would echo Representative Millette's request with a bit of a slant. Again, if we could have just a couple of guidance counselors weigh in on, I find this information easily accessible and here's where I go to get it, or I do not find that to be true, and a little bit of input from someone in that way, please. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And again, probably just a quick summary of Representative Stearns' bill would be helpful.
Yep, will do. For the guidance counselors, I'll see if I can reach out, whether they can provide something written or whether they can just be available for the work session.
Okay. And maybe Representative Stearns and Senator Pouliot might have a chance to talk before the work session and how we might be able to make sure that we're not being redundant or recreating dual systems. Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none.
I think Representative, I think Senator Pouliot has his hand up.
Oh, okay. Senator Pouliot.
Sure. Sounds like it would be helpful for me to get together with Representative Stearns and Ms. Risler to do like a side-by-side analysis of 572 and 1412, because there's definitely different attributes, but perhaps seeing that in like a grid form would be helpful for the committee.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So we'll officially close public hearing on 1412, and obviously it'll be scheduled for work session. And I think, Ms. Risler, are you going to tell us that we have language review? All right.
Yes.
It does conclude our public hearings for today, which, okay. And does anybody else on the committee have any questions, comments before we go to language review? Okay, and obviously we're not meeting tomorrow, and we start at 10 o'clock on Thursday with the work session. Okay. Senator Rafferty, do you have anything to add?
Questioning whether or not we may want to meet, mind your caucuses if you are going to meet relative to those bills for Thursday.
Think we so after language review, you'd like to have a corner caucus?
We could.
Okay. So why don't we do language review and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
All right, may I get started?
Yep.
All right, so first up is LD 127, which is resolved to establish a pilot program to provide grants for professional development in computer science instruction. You saw this already in pretty much narrative format at the work session. It's just a little bit of wordsmithing. The changes for the amendment provide that the commissioner shall distribute the grant funds across all counties in the state equally among pre-kindergarten to grade 5, grade 6 to grade 8, grade 9 to grade 12. It revises, that the local education agency may submit an application for grant funds under the pilot program, and the Commissioner of Education has to give priority to applicants that do not currently offer computer science learning opportunities, serve socioeconomically disadvantaged school districts, prioritize student populations traditionally underrepresented in computer science, demonstrate a commitment to pursuing high quality educator professional development that emphasizes integration of computer science into other coursework and curricula, or establish or expands access to courses that offer college credit and other certificates of value, or both, and collaborate or partner with other entities, including but not limited to other education agencies, the business community, nonprofit organizations, and private entities. It adds that in addition to teacher-developed professional development, it would also include teacher-led professional development. And then it amends the report provision, which provides that each local education agency that receives a grant under the pilot program shall engage in evaluation activities that include interviews or surveys on the process and effect and outcomes of the professional development provided with grant funds, participate in a community of educators engaged in similar work, and annually for the duration of the grant, submit to the Department of Education a report or other product that showcases learning achieved through professional development, and that includes a reflective narrative of the professional development process. And that the Department of Education shall compile those submissions and make them available for educators across the state. This bill also adds an appropriations and allocation section. It provides $250,000 in general funds in each year. It also provides $500 allocation for federal expenditures fund and for other special revenue funds. These are solely those placeholder funds, so that should federal funds or private funds become available, there's a place for that money to go. Any questions on LD 127? If not, I will move on to LD 604. LD 604 is a divided report. The majority voted ought to pass as amended. The minority voted ought not to pass. LD 604 is an act to promote accountability in Maine's charter schools. This is the majority amendment. It strikes the bill and replaces it with a resolve directing the Department of Education to report on charter school funding methods and reporting protocols. Provides that the Department of Education, in conjunction with MEPRI, shall report to the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs no later than February 1st of 2022 on funding methods and reporting protocols of public charter schools. The report must include financing mechanisms and methods used across the country, how other states handle the reporting of public financing of charter schools, and the methods for informing state legislatures, the public, and other interested parties on how charter schools are funded within the particular state. The fiscal note provides that any additional cost to implement the requirements can be absorbed within existing budgeted resources. Any questions from the majority on LD 604? Hearing none, I'm going to go to LD 816. This is an act to improve communication between school board members and employees and members. Well, it was originally an act to improve communications between school boards and educators by requiring notice of discussion of labor matters. The majority committee amendment changes the title to an act to improve communication between school board members and school employees and members of the public. And it provides that a school board shall regularly communicate with school employees in the school board school administrative unit and members of the public who reside within the boundaries of the school administrative unit. This bill did not have any fiscal note required. For quick reference, here is the voting sheet. The minority vote was ought not to pass. Any questions on any of those bills? Seeing none, they will be reported out, and I'm sure we'll have more language reviews for you on Thursday.
Right. And what are you going to do with your day off tomorrow?
I don't know what a day off is.
Well, you won't have us to work with tomorrow.
No, I'll be drafting all the bills you have been busy voting, and I will be preparing bill analysis for all the bills you've been busy hearing. Okay. But if anybody does have any questions during session tomorrow, I am always available. Feel free to email me and a good number to reach you, and I'm happy to give you a call.
Okay, great. So before we sign off, we are going to have a corner caucus, Democrats. And Sam, did you have any final words of wisdom?
Gosh, Representative, no wisdom. Just the weekly schedule did go out earlier today. So your inboxes got flooded with work session and public hearing notices. You can just ignore that and look at the weekly schedule because they're all posted on there and it's easier to view. I'll be getting caught up on testimony and bill files while you're all having your day tomorrow. So,
and are the bill files, have those been taken over to the Civic Center? Do you know?
They have not been taken over, Representative, but I will have them done, I'm thinking, within the hour here. I just need to get a drink of water and eat my banana so I don't pass out.
Okay.
But they will be ready, assuming I'm still good.
Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to break into banana time. Did I hear correctly that those files will be available at the Civic Center tomorrow?
Representative, it's very odd. There's some kind of breakdown in communication every time I get told to make the files for the chairs and leads, but in terms of how you pick them up, I think the caucuses are in charge of that. But I know, like, for example, Senator Rafferty is going to come over tomorrow morning to pick up. So they will be here. They will be available.
You can get yours.
So the short story is I should go to the State House to pick up those files.
It looks like Senator Rafferty might be offering to, I can honestly put them in a box. And if I don't know if you all see each other when you're there at the Civic Arena, but.
Well,
I'll be happy to bring them over. I'll rewrite them on the way, but I'll make sure they get there.
Thank you, Senator. That'd be great, and we'll connect somehow. Thank you.
Okay, Ben, so Senator Rafferty's okay.
Surprisingly, in the 2 days that we have been at the Civic Center, my interaction with the Senate has been next to none. So we almost never see the senators. Hey,
No, but you got your reports.
yes, you did.
Totally exciting. If I can just jump in real quick, Senator Rafferty, we might have someone who might be able to grab the reports too. So just adding in, I'll circle up with you, but we'll make sure, Paul and Dave and everyone, we get the reports. And thank you, Sam. And please eat.
And please, somebody just let me know because they're here and I spent a lot of time on them. So I'm happy for you all to get them. And I just want to make sure I would go over there, but I've been forbidden from going to the Civic Arena. So I can't go over there and drop them off.
Well, if you did come over, we could assure you a banana and water.
Good. Maybe a granola bar too.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody, some people immediately, and see everybody tomorrow.